The sound of the door clicking shut echoed in the empty hallway. My heart pounded as I stood there, frozen, a weight in my chest I couldn't shake off. The sharp bite of the cold air made me shiver, but it wasn't the temperature that chilled me. It was what I had just uncovered. If you've ever felt your whole world crumble with one moment of realization, you'll understand. The truth, the thing I never thought possible, was staring me right in the face. And in that silence, it hit me hard. The person I had welcomed into my family, the woman I thought was a perfect match for my son, had been lying to us all along. If you've ever trusted the wrong person, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. Stories like this are more common than you think. That was the moment everything started to unravel. I never expected it to happen like this. It was supposed to be just another evening. Camille was charming, her smile effortless, and David, well, he was already completely captivated. But that night, while I was in the kitchen, trying to quiet my growing unease, I overheard something that would change everything. Camille's voice echoed in the next room, speaking rapidly in French. I thought nothing of it at first. She was just chatting to her family, probably about the dinner or maybe our little family traditions. But then I heard it. She was speaking about my son, my David. She called him naive, said he was perfect for her plan. She talked about how easy it would be to manipulate him, how she'd be set for life once they married, and the green card would be a mere formality. And then she laughed. A cold, calculated laugh. I froze. My blood ran cold. My hands, holding the dish towel, shook so violently that I could barely keep my grip. How could I have been so blind? I had to act, and I had to act now. When David brought Camille home for the first time, I couldn't help but feel a wave of hope. After years of watching him date women who barely remembered my name, I was finally meeting someone who seemed genuinely interested in our family. Someone who truly cared. Camille was petite, elegant, with a grace that seemed almost effortless, like it was born in her. Her English was flawless, though her French accent added just enough charm to make every word feel deliberate and sweet. I could see why David was taken with her. She had that light, that something special, that I had always hoped he would find. At dinner, she asked thoughtful questions about the photos on our walls and smiled warmly when I served her my homemade lasagna. She even helped clear the table afterward, which felt like a small blessing, given the parade of past girlfriends who barely seemed interested in anything beyond their own self-image. I could already tell this one was different. For the first time in a long while, I allowed myself to feel optimistic. Maybe David had finally found the one, but as much as I wanted to bask in this warm moment, I couldn't shake a small knot in my stomach. Something about Camille felt too perfect, too polished. I wanted to believe this was it, the one who would stay. Yet, deep down, I knew I had to be careful. Sometimes things weren't always as they appeared. I didn't yet know why, but I was starting to feel that something wasn't quite right, something I couldn't name, but that my instincts whispered about. And soon, I would find out just how right I was. I was just finishing up in the kitchen when I heard it. Camille's voice, clear and confident, drifted from the living room. At first, I thought nothing of it. She was speaking to someone, probably a friend or family member, but then I caught a word, a name that made my stomach tighten. David. It was like a switch flipped. I froze, dish towel still in hand, listening intently as Camille's voice grew more distinct. My first instinct was to keep moving, to pretend I hadn't overheard anything, but I couldn't. I couldn't stop myself from hearing her words as much as I wanted to. She spoke about David, but not the way someone in love would. She called him naive, said he was perfect for her plans. She laughed, but it wasn't warm. It wasn't the kind of laugh you share with someone you care about. It was cold, calculated. She spoke as if he was a stepping stone, something she could use. The green card, the money, the stability. These were all just things to be used. I couldn't breathe. My heart pounded in my chest. I thought I knew Camille. I thought she was different. But this woman I had welcomed into my home, was using my son. I stood there, frozen. Every word felt like a punch, each one driving deeper. How had I been so blind? How had I missed it? The woman who had charmed me, who had seemed so warm and kind, was nothing like she appeared. I wanted to scream, to confront her right then and there, but I couldn't. Not yet. I had to be careful. I had to think. My mind raced, but I couldn't focus. My hands, still gripping the towel, felt numb. I needed to act. I couldn't let David be hurt like this. I had to protect him. And so, the decision was made. I would find out everything I could about Camille, every last detail. I didn't know how deep this went, but I had a feeling this was just the beginning. I couldn't just sit there, not after what I'd heard. Camille had been playing us all, and I wasn't about to let her destroy my son's life. I knew what I had to do. The first thing was to dig into her past, uncover anything that could expose her for who she truly was. I started with the basics. Camille's social media. At first, I told myself I was just being cautious. Nothing wrong with being thorough. Right. But as I scrolled through her Instagram, her Facebook, her LinkedIn, I started to feel the weight of the task ahead. Her online presence was so polished, almost too perfect. There were photos of her at dinner parties, art galleries, exotic vacations, nothing that would raise any red flags. But something was off. Her posts were recent, but there was hardly anything from before. No childhood memories, no friends tagged in photos from the past. It was like she had been hiding herself. I couldn't stop now. My fingers moved quicker, searching for anything that seemed out of place. I had to be sure. I reached out to a few people I knew, friends of friends, acquaintances. One of them had worked with Camille, and their description of her sent a chill down my spine. They'd described her as charming, but not particularly warm. She kept her distance, never really letting anyone get too close. And yet, she had managed to charm my son. The more I uncovered, the more my gut twisted. Camille's resume didn't check out either. Her supposed job at that high-end Parisian hotel. It didn't exist? The company she claimed to have worked for out of business 3 years ago. The references she gave David fakes. I felt my pulse quicken. This wasn't just a coincidence. This was deliberate. She had been planning this all along. I was in too deep now. There was no turning back. I had to keep going, no matter where it led. I couldn't let David marry her without knowing the truth. The next step I needed to find out more, much more. I didn't care what it took. I was going to uncover everything, and nothing was going to stop me. This was just the beginning. I didn't want to believe it. I really didn't. But the evidence was right there, staring me in the face. I had been searching through Camille's past for hours, piecing together bits of information, but I didn't expect to find what I did. It was a small detail at first, something I almost overlooked. But then it all came together. I was looking through her social media again, and something caught my eye. A post from an old relationship. Her ex, a man she'd been living with in Paris before David. I had been digging around in her background, but now the breadcrumbs led to something bigger. Her ex's name didn't just ring a bell, it matched another name I'd found in a completely separate database. I clicked through, heart hammering in my chest. I couldn't breathe as I sifted through the public records, pulling up court documents, marriage certificates, and even divorce filings. This wasn't her first attempt. There were 2 other names, 2 other men who had fallen victim to the same scam. The dates lined up perfectly. Camille had been married, used them, and when she was done, moved on. Same method, same pattern. And here she was, doing it again with David. I should have known. There had been too many little things, too many questions that I never asked. But now the truth hit me like a freight train. I felt sick to my stomach. How had I let her charm me? How had I ignored all the signs, all the subtle manipulations that now seemed so obvious David had fallen for it? Hook, line, and sinker. The woman who had charmed him, who had seemed so perfect, was nothing more than a professional con artist. But it wasn't just David. There were other victims, other families she had torn apart, just like she was doing to mine. The real Camille Dubois, whoever she was, wasn't even a part of this. She was living in the shadows while this woman destroyed lives in her name. My head was spinning. I felt a surge of anger rise in my chest, hotter and sharper than anything I'd ever felt before. Camille had taken so much from my son, and now I understood the depth of her lies, but I couldn't just sit here. I couldn't let this go on any longer. David had to know the truth. I had to act. I had no choice now. This wasn't just about protecting him from heartbreak. It was about protecting him from a woman who had been planning his destruction all along. I was going to confront Camille, and I would make sure that she couldn't hurt my son or anyone else ever again. I took a deep breath, the weight of what I had learned settling heavily in my chest. This wasn't over. It had just begun. I had always believed that Camille's family was just another part of her charm, the perfect in-laws to welcome my son into their lives. But now, as I listened to the details she'd shared, something started to feel wrong. It started with the smallest thing, a throwaway comment Camille made about her father's career, something that seemed so casual at the time. But when I tried to follow up, she hesitated. There was something off about the way she described him. His job seemed to change depending on the conversation, and she'd spoken of his work with such certainty, but there was never any specificity. Then, at dinner, it hit me. Her mother had been overly eager, too polite, as if she was acting in a role she'd rehearsed. The accent, the way she kept touching her face while speaking, trying too hard to be the sophisticated French matriarch. I remembered something from earlier when Camille introduced them. She hadn't said a word about her parents' professions, and when I asked, the details didn't add up. Her father was supposed to be a retired teacher, but the way her mother had spoken of him seemed to suggest something else entirely. I couldn't ignore the feeling in my gut anymore. I started doing what I should have done all along, looking closer. Camille had told David her parents lived in Marseille, but in the brief conversation we had that evening, something didn't add up. Her descriptions of their hometown didn't match any known landmarks or major details about the city. How had I not caught this before? The final clue fell into place when I looked at their photos. Camille's family wasn't the warm, well-established couple she'd made them out to be. They were strangers. I found a photograph of her father that was taken in a very public place. But there was something strange about it. The background was all wrong. It was from a photo shoot, not a casual family vacation. I had to face the truth. Camille's family wasn't real. They were actors, playing the part of a loving, wealthy family to manipulate David. She had created a perfect illusion, crafted every detail to gain his trust, to make him believe in a future that didn't exist. The weight of it all hit me like a ton of bricks. She hadn't just lied to David. She'd planned this carefully, calculating every move, and my son, in his innocence, had fallen for it. She'd been pretending to be everything he wanted, everything he needed, and all along, it had been a game to her. I couldn't sit back any longer. This was bigger than I thought. I had to act now, before it was too late. My son needed to know the truth, and I had to make sure he understood the depth of her deception. I wasn't going to let her destroy his future. Not if I could stop it. I couldn't breathe. The weight of everything I had uncovered pressed down on me like 1,000 pounds. My heart was racing, but I had no choice now. I had to confront her, Camille, the woman who had deceived my son so thoroughly, so coldly. I stared at her across the room, my hands shaking slightly, but my resolve was growing stronger with each passing second. She was sitting there, so calm, so composed, like nothing was wrong. How could she act like everything was fine? Didn't she know the walls were closing in? Didn't she know I knew everything? I took a breath. It was time. You've been lying to David. To all of us, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. The words tasted like acid, burning as they left my mouth. I could see the moment it hit her. The flicker of surprise in her eyes, quickly masked by a smooth, practiced smile. You don't know what you're talking about, she replied, her voice almost too sweet, too calm. But I could see the cracks beginning to form. No, I know exactly what I'm talking about. My pulse was pounding in my ears, but I forced myself to stay calm. You've been pretending. You've been lying about your family, about who you are. Everything about you is a lie. For a moment, she didn't say anything. I could see the wheels turning in her head as she tried to find a way out. But I wasn't going to let her. Not now. Not after everything I'd uncovered. You don't understand, she finally said, her voice faltering for just a second before she caught herself. David is special to me. I needed to make him believe. I needed him to trust me. The words felt like a slap. Trust. She had used my son, manipulated him into believing a fantasy. And for what power control? My stomach turned, and I had to fight to keep my voice steady. You've ruined him. You've used him to get what you wanted, I said, my hands now clenched into fists at my sides. The anger bubbled up inside me, so raw and fierce that it was hard to hold back. You don't love him. You never did. This was all just a game to you. She stood up suddenly, her eyes cold, calculating. The woman I thought I knew was gone, replaced by someone unrecognizable. You don't understand, she said again, more harshly this time. David was never meant to be more than a stepping stone. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. The words hit harder than anything I had expected. My son, my sweet boy, had been a pawn in her sick game. The rage surged, but it was tempered by something deeper, a sense of betrayal so profound it cut straight to my core. I couldn't let this stand. Not for him, not for me. I had to protect him. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. As she turned away, already calculating her next move, I knew I had to act. There was no turning back now. The truth was out, and I wasn't going to let her destroy him any longer. The weight of what had happened hit me the moment I saw David's face, his eyes, full of hurt, full of confusion. I never imagined it would come to this. I never imagined that doing the right thing, the thing I knew I had to do, would leave such a deep, painful scar between us. He hasn't spoken to me since that day, and I know why. I know I shattered his trust, and it breaks me. The look in his eyes when he turned away, the pain on his face, I carry that with me, but I know I couldn't let him continue down that path. Not with her, not with someone who only ever saw him as a means to an end. As much as it hurts to see him angry with me, to feel that distance grow between us, I know it's what needed to happen. I didn't want to tear his world apart, but sometimes the right thing is the hardest thing. I never wanted to be the villain in his story. I just wanted to protect him, to keep him from a life of heartbreak and lies. And even if it cost me his forgiveness right now, even if he can't see it yet, I hope one day he'll understand. I feel the weight of it, the grief, the loneliness, but I also feel a quiet, uneasy peace. I did what I had to do, and I believe that with time, with patience, the wounds will heal. The distance between us may seem too great to cross now, but I know that eventually he'll come back to me. I have to believe that, because if I don't, what was it all for? The road ahead won't be easy, but for now, I rest in the knowledge that I did the right thing, even when it felt impossible. I can only hope that one day, David will forgive me. It's hard to put into words the weight of everything that's happened. I always thought that protecting David, keeping him safe from harm, would be the easy part. But the truth is, doing the right thing doesn't always feel like a victory. Sometimes, it feels like a heavy burden you carry alone, and I've been carrying it for weeks now. I never expected the confrontation with Camille to shake me the way it did. I never imagined it would cost me so much. My son, the person I've dedicated my whole life to, turned away from me that day, and the pain of it cuts deeper than I ever could have imagined. I know why he's angry. I do. But knowing doesn't make it any easier. The bond we shared, the trust we had, it feels fragile now, like something I might never be able to rebuild. And yet, as I sit with this grief, something else starts to rise. Acceptance. I did what I had to do. I couldn't stand by and let him be taken in by someone who had no real love for him, someone who only saw him as a pawn. It was hard. It hurt. But in my heart, I know it was necessary. And maybe, in time, David will understand that. I wish I could fix everything right now, make it all better. But healing takes time, and I'm beginning to accept that. It won't be easy, and I don't know when things will return to normal, but I do believe they can. There's hope in that. Hope that with time, David will come to see why I did what I did. For now, all I can do is wait and trust that the path we're on will lead us back to each other. It won't be quick, but I know it's possible, and for the first time in weeks, I feel a glimmer of peace. We will heal. We have to.